It's Friday, September 5th, 2025, and I'm tracking a strong cold front working its way across the country, producing some severe weather tonight, but a rare risk for tornadoes in the Northeast tomorrow. And as you can see right now, we have some severe weather for parts of Kentucky, a severe thunderstorm watch, and there will be more severe storms along this front tonight. And here's the setup for the Northeast, as we will see that front swing through tomorrow, sparking severe storms in the afternoon in a pretty unstable environment. And that could produce a few stronger storms and maybe a few isolated tornadoes across parts of the area. So tonight, that front will be causing some isolated severe weather like I mentioned. We already saw those severe storms in parts of Kentucky, and there will be a few more as we push through tonight, a level 2 out of 5 risk. And you can see that zoomed in here through parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, even northern Alabama, Mississippi, West Virginia, and Ohio. And you can see that coincides nicely here with the low-end tornado risk, so an isolated tornado is possible, but more likely to be straight-line wind gusts as the main threat tonight. And there's plenty of fuel for these showers and storms, which will all be pushed into the Northeast tomorrow. And you can see as we head through tonight, those storms will be pushing through parts of the South, going up into the Ohio Valley, and even through parts of the Appalachians. We're not looking at a widespread severe weather outbreak, but a level 2 out of 5 means isolated severe storms tonight, and all threats are in play. Now we move to the Northeast, where you can see that level 2 out of 5 risk focused on parts of New England, New York, Pennsylvania, and several mid-Atlantic states. And you can track that severe risk that goes all the way down to the south, but it's a level 1 out of 5 there, so even more isolated. And we have that tornado risk tomorrow that stretches from Pennsylvania all the way up into New England, where we could see a few isolated tornadoes. It's the lowest on the scale, so these probably won't be destructive, but it's pretty rare to get a tornado risk at all this time of the year in the Northeast. And here's a look at that thunderstorm fuel as we push into the afternoon. This is called convective energy, and basically the model assesses how much fuel a storm has to work with. And you can see it gets fairly high as we move into the afternoon on Saturday. It's decent, not too strong, but it's just enough to potentially produce a few severe storms across the area. And here's the wind speed going into the afternoon. So this is a snapshot mid-afternoon, and this is where we'll see those strong storms develop. So the winds will be pretty strong out of the south. However, the storms want to go east. So as they move eastward and the winds remain out of the south, that will cause some of the storms to rotate a bit, and that could lead to a couple isolated tornadoes. Like I mentioned, this is a rare setup for this time of the year because normally we need a few more ingredients in terms of stronger thunderstorms to get any rotation in September. Normally, if we see this risk, it's from a tropical system, but not a cold front. So as we push into the afternoon here, here's the future model, taking those storms into the forecast for the afternoon through parts of northern New England and really pushing through parts of southern New England mid-afternoon, stretching down into New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and even as far south as Washington, D.C. But the main risk of the tornado action will be those states I mentioned before, but we will be tracking the storms as they head eastward. Notice how they fall apart, and then we transition more to just general shower activity into the overnight. So the main risk will be mid-afternoon on Saturday. These storms may also produce a little bit of hail. This is more typical for this time of the year because it's really cold upstairs, but I do think the hail risk still isolated tomorrow. It's definitely more of a wind and potential isolated tornado threat. And behind this front, there is the cold air that'll be spilling into parts of the Midwest. Eventually, this will get into the Northeast as well, but there could be some near record lows again for parts of the Midwest with this secondary reinforcement of cold air. And you can see that here across the Midwest. International Falls getting down to 37, just about 5 degrees off of your record low. And that's a similar case for Duluth, Rhinelander, Green Bay, but definitely a chilly morning with potential frost again for the Midwest. A little unusual for this time of the year. However, behind the front, eventually there is a pattern change going into mid-September, and we will see some warmer days ahead across the Midwest where 70s and even 80s could return. So it's quite a big shift in the forecast here. Even though it looks cooler in the Northeast, eventually the warmth will get to the East Coast as well as we move through the next couple of weeks. Now, before we talk about the tropics, which we have a lot going on there, our new weather app Storm Chance is coming out in a few weeks. It is an impact-based weather app which will be focused on major storm systems across the country and have hyperlocal updates for your area. We're really excited about this product. If you have any questions, leave a comment below or reach out through our website. Now we head out to the Pacific, where we find Hurricane Kiko, which continues its trek off to the west and will eventually shift northwest, heading right for Hawaii. The one good thing is this path does take it over cooler waters, so it is expected to weaken down to a tropical storm before impacting the islands, but it still could have some stronger tropical storm characteristics as it gets closer to Hawaii. That includes gusty winds and maybe some heavy rains. And let's take a look at those wind gusts as the storm gets closer to Hawaii. Notice how the stronger winds fade away, but there still could be some gusts over 20 to 30 miles per hour as the storm gets closer, and we can't even rule out some 40-mile-per-hour gusts if the storm shifts to the south. So there still could be some tropical storm winds, even with the storm most likely just grazing the islands as it passes by. And here's a look at the rainfall forecast. As you can see, the heaviest of the rain most likely stays off to the north. I do think there's about a 70% chance this holds together. So you're looking at some lighter rains for the islands, which is much needed. But if you had the heavier rains, you'd be talking more significant risk for flash flooding. And of course, we'll have some wave action with the storm getting closer. It looks like 10 to 15 foot waves most likely, maybe as high as 18 to 20 feet if it comes closer, but probably about 10 to 15 foot waves with the storm just passing off to the north. Now we head over to the Atlantic, where we have a good chance of getting our next storm to develop here. There is an invest that is confirmed by the National Hurricane Center now, and its track will be going westward into favorable conditions for hurricane development. And that next storm on the list would be Gabrielle if it does form. We've been talking about this for several days now, but most likely will form over the next few days, and then we'll see where it goes. Still several more names on the list. If there is a particular name you think will be the worst storm on the season, definitely leave a comment below on which one you think could be the most destructive. And here's a look at the spaghetti models, which take this storm through that area of development, but of course through parts of the Caribbean. So we'll be watching this pretty closely over the next few days, as there's a decent chance of the storm system affecting some areas as it heads off to the west. So looking ahead, we'll be tracking a few things over the next few days. Of course, Gabrielle is likely to form. Kiko is going to get close to Hawaii and could bring some issues to the islands. And we also have a major pattern change. Basically, the pattern is going to flip mid-month, where we could see warm stuff where there was cool stuff and vice versa. And then we also have a potential flood risk for the plains as Lorena's remnants make their way into parts of the area. I'll have updates on all these things as we head over the next several days.